the Nepali pronunciation is Tamang, but you can definitely say Tamang. That's totally fine.
Gotcha. Well, today we have Astha Tamang-Maskey, who is an amazing Nepali Canadian singer. We're honored to have you and hear about your life and your journey and your music making. And yeah, loving your new album. I listened to the one that was released last year, right? You had one that came out just last year. Yeah, beautiful. And there's a amazing mini series attached to it. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes, I know. It's kind of one of those creative things that perhaps maybe even went a little out of scope. We started off kind of wanting to just do like a little short film intro to the album, kind of, and it was kind of a project that was really special to me, and I wanted to kind of give the fans who've been waiting for years for this album to come out something to really kind of hook into the entire premise of what the album is, which is basically from a Nepali music scene context, my disappearance for the last 10 years. So I really wanted to kind of put together a project that was going to reflect that in a sense, where it would kind of explain where I've been. And so I feel like musically, I definitely accomplished that on the album. And visually, I just wanted to feel like a treat, you know. So it was a sort of a huge project to manage and also to release, because there was this huge 13 song album with four crazy visuals attached to it. But what we were also working behind the scenes was this beautiful short film, which is now turning into this full length feature film, which kind of happened throughout the progress of the project. So I think from a standpoint of putting something out there that reflected what we wanted to accomplish in terms of adding a visual narrative to the songs, I think that's there. But I'm so excited to probably eventually release the feature film, because I feel like that's where we really bring it home. So right now, the creative team is working really hard to put the entire film into basically take it out of post production. And hopefully we start sample testing it and things like that. So I'm very, very excited about that, Nick. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
And your music will be accompanying the film. It will be you're in the film, or that your music is at least.
Yes, yes, it will be part of the most of the background scores, basically.
So basically, that short mini series is being expanded into a film. So it's the same storyline essentially, or the same premise.
Essentially, the same storyline. Perhaps I think a little more detail into sort of the character development and what they experience, and I feel like we have left enough hooks on each music video. And music videos are interesting, right? Because people may not be taking it in as a full four-length series. Like, they might be discovering it in pieces. So we wanted to make sure they sort of stood alone, sort of as standalone content. So if they found one video at a time, like, it would still sort of hook them in some ways. So I think that was the biggest challenge, actually, while pushing this project out. But in regards to the feature film, I think it touches on a narrative that I feel like, especially in recent events, I feel like Nepal is going through this giant political shift. And I think it really reflects sort of what the younger generation is feeling in terms of how they feel sort of being this next gen that is trying to, carve out their dreams in this country that perhaps doesn't have all its environment or its systems figured out. So I feel like there's kind of like this underlying narrative of both the frustrations the youth is feeling, but also this beautiful optimism. So I feel like we've kind of really captured that. Personally, I'm really looking forward to the first edit as well. So I wish I could give you more, but I feel like it's going to be a really special release, especially in the independent film circle. I'm not sure if it's really for the masses, but I think it will definitely be relevant for those who are experiencing that.
Great. Yeah, I really enjoyed watching those first four episodes. So it's going to be amazing to see that expanded into a full length film. It
Yeah.
really acted very well. The music was of course beautiful. So
Yeah,
congrats.
and it's amazing. Like, the team is so young; they're all in their early 20s. The production team in charge of it, named Katacharya, was behind sort of a lot of the scripting. and the actors. Honestly,
I know.
this was actually their very first project in terms of like a full feature film sort of shooting. And they killed it. Honestly, I'm so
Yeah.
proud of them. And me being a millennial, I feel like I'm sort of just entering that age bracket where I'm looking at this younger generation of artists and talents, and I'm just so blown away as to what they can do, and that's part of, I guess, the beauty of being a part of an amazing art community, where we get to see that and where we get to see the next generation of creatives sort of like build this next landscape. So I'm
Yeah.
very excited about that. Yeah,
I
yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
it's amazing how they're able to age them and then de-age them, and they look young.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
yeah. I'm so glad you caught that. It was everything from the haircut
I know.
to what they were wearing to how they were delivering their lines. Honestly, yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah.
did a great job. Well, so your mom is an incredible singer, right? Talk about growing up in this musical household, which you grew up in, right? Is your dad a musician too, or just your mom?
Yes, he is actually.
Hmm.
My parents met performing together, so they were in a band together in their youth. Nepal, from a musical standpoint, it's very interesting because in a lot of ways we were sort of isolated from the rest of the world until really the internet age. So I feel like the '70s music culture had a huge impact in sort of shaping Nepal's pop culture quite a bit. Like to this day, we have like these amazing rock bands that dominate the popular culture scene. Like it's quite fascinating to see, and it's hard to put into words. You have to almost experience it. Like you would, walk into a pub and there'd be playing AC/DC or something like that. It's quite amazing how dominant the '70s culture still is to this day, and I feel like a lot of that happened because of sort of a lot of the people who were visiting Nepal in the '70s bringing in, this amazing music and their records, and people who were traveling from the U.S. And bringing this culture in, sort of like this hippie culture where they would be traveling, they would bring in all this music, and to this day, like it's such a big part of that culture. And my dad, it's interesting. My mom, she grew up in a very sort of a lot of Eastern influences, so a lot of classical music, a lot of South Asian music, a lot of Eastern influences. Whereas my dad, he did his master's in Russia. He was pursuing his master's in engineering, and he had this, beautiful, amazing catalog of just artists of his time, like the Beatles and the Carpenters, and he would bring all these vinyl records home, and I was this kid in that household, sort of just listening to both sides of that world, and my parents, I think they get connected because they're playing music together, and they were playing for a band at the time, and this was right before the democratic movement of 1989. So basically, Nepal is going through this transition from monarchy to bringing in this democracy, and right about then, like my parents, they're part of this group where they're writing a lot of sort of social awareness songs, um, revolutionary songs, and they're part of this like beautiful creative group who were putting these songs together and putting out into the world. And my mom was the lead vocalist, so she would sing, and she'd like fill these stadiums, and people would just like pin drop silence, just listen to her sing these songs, and that's essentially how my parents meet and fall in love, and here
So
I
you're
am.
here, you're here because of music, literally.
I
Yeah.
really am. I am honestly a child of music. I
Yeah.
really am. And
Yeah.
I've been so blessed and so honored to have parents who understood the beauty of that art form and created an environment where I could really thrive as not just a musician, but just a lover of the arts. I am so grateful to them for that. So to this day, I get to do what I love, and honestly, so much of it is because of them. Um,
And
and
what were
yeah,
you as a kid? Were you singing with your mom from as early as you can remember? Just singing along with your mom, singing in the house, or were you singing very early on? Or did that take a while?
yeah. My mom used to say that. she still remembers the first time she realized that I could sing. So it must have been, I don't have a memory of that, but I must have been a toddler or something like that. But my mom used to do this thing where she would just be just busting out, like, just a cappella, just singing all the, like, these are my memories with my mother. And my dad will always be strumming along and things like that. And so I think I feel like just through osmosis, I was just absorbing so much music that sometimes, I go through this identity crisis almost where I'm like, wait, like, is this like who I really am, or is this something that I've sort of just, absorbed just through my environment? But over the years, I've come to the reflection that this is definitely just a part of my genetic being. And there's something about being a musician, it's just a part of who you are. It's just a part of your genetic code. And if you're spiritual, it's a part of who you are and your soul, and you almost don't even really know who you are without it. And I'm going through that a lot, especially as I get older. So yes, I would say, yeah, I would sing a lot with her, probably listen a lot. My mom would take me to a lot of her studio sessions. She would take me to a lot of these social gatherings she would have where sometimes I would almost be forced to sing. And I still remember feeling like, Mom, like, don't make me do that. But it was just reps, it was practice. It was probably like, if I have to kind of relate, it's probably similar to having, if you're like a pro athlete, like you're probably just, just getting those reps in.
Yeah.
And for me, it was,
So you were performing as a kid.
I was performing as a kid, yeah. And I didn't even really realize I was. It was just like, hey, Astha's here, my daughter's here, she'll sing a song for you. And next thing you know, I would have a room full of people just listening to me sing. And after many, many reps, it just becomes second nature, and you're drawn to it, and you just keep doing it. And when I think back, like, if there was a scenario, if that wasn't a part of my childhood, would I still be singing? And the answer I've come to is like 100% yes, because, as an adult, I've become quite the opposite compared to my 20s, which is a complete introvert. And all I find myself doing is just singing. I'm always singing. I'm always humming. It's almost a way I calm my nervous system down. So if I'm stressed out, I'm singing. If I'm sad, I'm singing. If I'm happy, I'm singing. So it's just what I do.
Does it feel that, I'm just curious because, so you've been on stage essentially your whole life and singing in front of people your whole life. When you get on stage now, does it feel natural like it did when you were a kid? Or when you age and grow up a little bit, do nerves kind of come into the situation? Or is the live performance experience for you a nerve-free thing? You're just comfortable on stage?
I think a little bit of nerves is always very natural and almost necessary. It's almost like this fight or flight moment, but there is this adrenaline that your body releases right before. And I feel like that's almost why we do it. I don't know, Nick. I mean, you come from an orchestra background, you're performing as well, I'm sure, a lot. And I feel like you'd relate and you understand what I'm saying. So I think there's this moment of this like dopamine release that happens right before you perform. And I'm not saying that I'm addicted to it, but there's definitely a comfort with it. I would say maybe more than most people. But it's hard to say. Like I said, I've been doing this for so long. The nerves have become natural. Like I feel like there are shows where if I don't feel those nerves, I almost don't have a good show, if that makes any sense. Like I'm too numbed, I'm too calm. I feel like I don't give my best performances. But when I feel that little bit of anxiety, that little bit of butterflies and the tummy feeling, and I go up on stage, that's where I feel like those are the moments I feel like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a good show today. And then the spotlight turns on, and it's just completely, it just feels like it just went by, and I was like, okay,
Wow.
So I would say in some ways very natural. Yeah.
So getting nervous is good, essentially, when you break it down. It's
I think so. I think a lot of people, you know, maybe don't enjoy the art of performing because of that feeling, but I feel like that is actually perhaps almost important, I would say. Like
So embrace
it's
it.
almost necessary. It's like breathing. Yeah, you almost need
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
You got to
yeah.
embrace that nerve.
Exactly.
It propels you forward. Incredible.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, talk about the Nepali vocal tradition. Do you express differently singing in Nepali versus English? I mean, do you feel like you're expressing yourself differently singing in a different language?
That's a great question, actually, and I've tried to sort of unravel that myself in my mind because I've always had this strange conflict with myself in terms of because I spent so many years of my sort of adolescence in Canada, there's almost like this weird hybrid bilingual identity that I have in my body, and sometimes it's also really hard for me to switch from, let's say, if I'm speaking Nepali and if I start to speak English, then it almost becomes hard to shift back to Nepali. It's hard. It's like there's a weird brain bridge thing that happens. But because I think, like I said, just through osmosis and just having spent my childhood in Nepal, I think there are certain, like linguistically, and also from a standpoint of melody lines that almost come natural to me while I'm emoting in Nepali. So there is like almost like I would say more so in terms of like melody structure and how I sort of put the words together and put the melody behind each word. I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining this right. Whereas with English, because so much of the music I listen to primarily, dominantly, is in the English language, I feel like as an artist, what I've practiced, or I think maybe mastered in some ways over the years, is sort of finding that right balance between singing in Nepali, but also bringing in the Western pop sound, and maintaining the essence of the Nepali language while staying true to the genres that I love, which are predominantly Western. So I think when I'm switching back and forth, there are times when let's say I'm writing and an album just wants to be predominantly in a specific language. As I'm writing, I miss the other language. I don't know how to explain it. So I think over the years, like my entire sort of songwriting career, what I've really, really, really practiced and I'm trying to still do in my art form is to find a way to sort of balance those both sides of myself so I can keep each side sort of fulfilled, if that makes sense. I'm still working on it. I mean, I think that's part of the being an artist journey. Like I'm still kind of, trying to get there to that place where it's like in my head and I'm trying to bring it to fruition. But to answer your question, I would say yes, it's slightly different. But I would love to get to a place where I connect the two. Like build a bridge. Yeah,
That's
I think that's
fascinating.
what I'm working on.
And
Yeah, yeah.
you're perfectly bilingual, right? So it's just it must be like it's almost like two minds though, right? Because when you're in English, you must have a different set of feelings compared to Nepali, right? When you're speaking, and it's almost like a different world in a sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Nepal, growing up in Nepal is kind of a strange experience too. Like we have these, as a part of our education system, a lot of us end up going to these English medium private schools where, the public education system is primarily, I think a lot of the textbooks are also in Nepali, but when you sort of go through these English medium schools, there's a huge, almost systemically, almost encouraged to for students to really practice the English language. So I think for me, because having an English medium school background, there were times where maybe you would walk into class and you'd have really just one subject that you would study in Nepali, which is Nepali, right? So the rest of the classes you're just taking in all your knowledge in English. So I think as a part of my upbringing, whether it was intentional or not, the English language was predominantly there ever since I was a young kid. And I think, making that transition into the Canadian life became almost, from a language standpoint, of course, there were other things to learn, but in terms of actually having a grasp of the English language, it was a lot easier of a transition, I think, than most cultures. So I actually feel like I need more practice speaking Nepali, to be honest. Like that's what I feel. And as an adult, I'm doing that a lot more. Like my mother, she's just so eloquent with her words and the way she speaks, and and I'm glad that I grew up in a household where I get to kind of retain that language and speak to my parents in Nepali. And hopefully I get to practice more of that. But unfortunately, like my friend circles or people who I'm hanging out with, or even Nepali people I speak to, like we use English so much, and you probably noticed that in the music videos as well, where it's very, very, very common to kind of switch from the Nepali to English, English to Nepali, like that's sort
Mm.
of kind of part of like big part of our culture now. So hopefully I keep practicing and getting better in Nepali. I really want to.
That was fascinating. Yeah, to see that in
Yeah.
those videos where English sentences just kind of make their way into the Nepali language, right? So,
And it's
and what,
very common. Yeah.
yeah, it's super interesting. And when you're singing though, are you doing anything different technically when you're in Nepali versus English, or is the technique the same?
I think when I was younger, I was, and because I'd sort of grown up in Canada, the thing I actually had the hardest time with was like really nailing the pronunciation. And I think this goes back to what we were speaking or what we were speaking about earlier. Sometimes when you are combining the Western genre of music with, with Eastern vocal styles, sometimes when you put them together, you just can't help but have like this almost like, oh, like, is there an accent kind of feeling? So for me, over the years, what I've really practiced doing is just nailing the pronunciation and making sure it sounds authentic, and making sure it doesn't, the two genres clashing or the fusion of the two doesn't doesn't necessarily affect what I'm trying to emote or say, or affect my pronunciation. So I think a lot of like technically what I'm really practicing is really enunciating. I think there's a lot of making sure that the enunciation is accurate, making sure the emphasis is on the right syllables, making sure. So it's more so from a linguistic standpoint, but I wouldn't say I'm really doing anything that different from a singing standpoint. If that
Okay.
answers your
Yeah, like
question.
throat
Yeah,
or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And are there any exercises that you do to maintain your voice? Warm ups, things like that.
Yes. So I do vocal warm ups, and I make sure if I'm not doing them daily, I do them every other day. So I kind of go through the Eastern scale and the Western scale. So I do them both. I'm not extremely technically trained in terms of singing or even music, really. I would say a lot of these things I do by ear, but I have a sort of a basic understanding of the scale, things like that. So I have a notebook that I have that I just go through and run through scales.
Hmm.
So I do that sort of every other day, I would say. And then more than singing, what I do practice is I practice songwriting a lot. And there's so many songs that because I would say songwriting more than anything is probably my primary art form. And even if there are days where nothing comes out on paper, I still sit with my guitar. I go through my chord progressions and write down melody lines or lyric ideas or whatever pops into my head. And that I try to do almost on a daily basis, even if it doesn't turn into a song.
And is there a certain time you do this in the morning, the evening? Do you have a set time that you kind of sit down and write?
I didn't when I was younger, but now I do. Like it's on my calendar. I force myself to go, and there are times where I don't feel like it. Like I'm just not feeling inspired, or I'm having a shitty day, or I just don't feel like it. But what I realized in the process of sort of being this creative person who doesn't like rigid schedules, structure is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Just creating that discipline. And for me, what I've realized really helps is just having an instrument really close to you at all times. So if there is even an area in the house that I like to hang out a lot, I just make sure my guitar is always there so that, if there's a moment where I just want to grab it, it's readily available, it's easily accessible, you know. So I have that's sort of kind of been my routine lately. I schedule it in my calendar, I sit down with it, and I make sure my instrument's readily available. Now, singing's not hard because I'm always it's with me, it's in my body. So that I do on a regular basis. I'll be listening to music. I've been listening to a lot of Olivia Dean Ray lately. I'm just, belting out songs daily as I'm cooking or in the shower or whatever it is, or taking a walk with my dog. But in terms of actual songwriting, the instrument is so important. So I just make sure my guitar is always, a couple of feet away from me at all times. So
So,
in case I want to write, it's there. Yeah.
so the notification pops up on your phone. I got to go write songs. And then you just sit down and do it.
It may not be as, hey, there's a calendar, like, it may not be just, but in
Uh,
that vicinity of time frame, yes, I do that. I mean, in recent years, I've started to do that.
and how
This
long?
was not me in my 20s.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I
So,
know. A lot of times we're more spontaneous when we're younger, right? I've noticed that too myself. Like then the schedule starts to creep in a lot more as we get older. But
yeah.
in terms of how long do these songwriting sessions last? Is it just a little bit of time? Does it vary? Do you have to sit down for a certain amount of time, like an hour, for example, or?
Yeah, for me, honestly, it's some days can just be a dud. Like there's just nothing. It almost becomes a frustrating experience. And on days like that, I kind of walk away earlier than my scheduled time, obviously. But what I've also realized is like when you have these consecutive sessions of, okay, today was bad, tomorrow's bad, and then you hit this one day where you're like, whoa, this is really good. And next thing you've spent hours and time has just flown by. Yeah. So good sessions are like that. Bad sessions,
Yeah. So
half
if
an
you
hour maybe.
if you didn't
Yeah.
do the daily thing, then that good session wouldn't have happened, right? Because
Exactly.
you have to go through the bad
Exactly.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you hear a lot of songwriters talk about this too. It almost has to become this disciplined thing where you kind of approach it and just crack at it, just chisel it down. And then you get to the center of that. And sometimes it's even, you have this idea and you follow it, you follow it, follow it. And then you end up getting to the core and you just kind of scrap that first idea and you're like, whoa, I found something else. So I think that's where the discipline's really important. And I'm practicing to do that in my 30s. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the goal with these sessions? Is it cranking out one song or is it just anything? Just get something done?
For me, now if I'm conceptually working on a full body of work, so right now I am working on my next album, and I'm sort of conceptually playing with certain ideas. If I already have a concept in mind, then I would sort of just sit with that on a daily basis. But sometimes it's the work prior to the concept where you're just like, well, I don't even know what it is the next thing's going to be. I think it would be similar to if you were a painter and you had a canvas, like, I don't know what I'm going to paint. So for me, there's kind of the space sometimes where I don't even really know what my next body work's going to be. And like you said, it's just sitting and just exploring, and it's play. Like I feel like especially in the social media age, so much of us are just so focused on content creating, we're not playing enough. And by play, I mean not just playing an instrument. I just mean this act of just, if you were a child and you were just playing with some toys or something, there's just this beautiful creative landscape where you can just lose yourself for hours. And that is the feeling I chase more now. So the exercise of sitting down is just kind of get to that place of play. And then once you get to that place of play, hopefully you find this beautiful idea that you've been looking for, and then you kind of hone in on that, and hopefully that conceptualizes. And I'm traditional. I write full body, like full albums. Singles are just not enough for my expression. Just kind of more traditional that way. So once that first song conceptualizes, the others follow. So what I'm really trying to do with these scheduled blocks is I'm trying to find my way back to play, because I think it was a lot easier to do that, I feel like, when I was in my teens, where, I didn't have this external identity of Astha Tamang-Maskey. I didn't have, to worry about pushing albums out, but there was this element of just me, myself, my instrument in a space where I could just spend hours just playing, you know. So that's the feeling I'm trying to get back to as an adult. And most days I'm successful, so it's great.
Right.
Yeah, and some days I'm not, and that's okay. I'm not too hard on myself.
And where do you think ideas come from? I mean, when you have a good day and ideas are just flowing through, where do those ideas come from? What's the source?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I definitely believe that there is a source. I feel like there's definitely a bank or a library of some sort that exists in sort of like this spiritual dimension. I do believe that. And there's this almost this feeling you have when you get to kind of tap into it. Of course, I can't physically define what the source is, but I definitely think that a lot of creatives tap into that. And once you have an idea, I feel that it almost becomes a responsibility to see it through. It's when you give up on that idea, I feel like and it doesn't go all the way. It's kind of almost a depressing, almost a sad emotion. So this source that you tap into, you don't always have access to. So when you do tap into that, I think it's like as an artist, it's almost a responsibility without expectation of the outcome to just follow the idea through. And to answer your question, where is the source? I don't know. But it must exist in some sort of a higher realm that I can't see. But I would say in some ways, touched it or experienced it because it's almost this beautiful, for lack of a better word, almost a extremely high frequency, like feeling of excitement, but also this feeling of like this nurturing healing. Like I have a hard time explaining it, but when you tap into it, like you just know it, and you don't always tap into it. You don't always tap into it. So yeah, I am fascinated with this idea of the source, and I do believe that that's where all ideas come from. I as much as I would want to let my ego believe that I am the source of all these creations, I don't think I am. I think I find myself humbled every time. And I wonder what the next 10 years of continuing on this journey or this craft is going to let me experience. But for the short 2 decades that I've had really committed to this craft, I've definitely experienced it maybe a few times. Maybe a few times. And that's part of the reason I do the schedule, right? Like, ideas, hopefully I'll get to experience that again. That's the
Yeah.
chase. Yeah,
So
that's
if
the
you're
chase.
given an idea and an idea is beamed through to you, it is now your responsibility to finish that idea, or else you're kind of betraying the source in a sense. Like you're not being responsible with what you've been given. So it's almost your
Yeah.
responsibility to yeah. So that's how you think of it.
I also think of it as you almost need to be ready to receive it too. Meaning, if you have somehow been blessed with this idea or this, I don't know, creative spark or whatever it is that you want to create. And those moments can be smaller too. It doesn't always have to be, I don't know, a 13-song album. It doesn't have to be that. They could be small ideas. It could be small creative ideas that you have throughout the day. I don't know, I woke up this morning and I just want to bake a cake. I don't know. Whatever that may be, right? There is this beautiful connection that you feel from the moment that idea enters your body to basically where it finishes. But what I'm practicing to do is not have so much, not fixate on what the outcome is, but that process of when you get from one idea to another. I think that's where true growth happens. And just bringing that idea to fruition, which becomes, in my experience, a responsibility, because if you don't, someone else will. I don't know how to explain it. So, and that's okay. I mean, I don't think the source cares who executes this. I don't think, like I said, this is where I find myself humbled all the time. But I selfishly want to experience that process. So I make it sort of my responsibility to see it through. I'm not saying there's like a chosen one, you know? Like I feel like if this idea was given to me, someone else could have it too. But if I don't do it, I feel like this feeling of like, oh, but now I've missed out on that process of play.
Incredible. And
Thank
can
you.
you just kind of lay this out for people? How can one more consistently access ideas or access the source or tap in? How does one get close more consistently?
That's a great question. And it's something that I struggled with, and to the point where I almost had to take a huge break from my career in order to get back to that. Right around 2014, 2015, I finished my first sort of world tour experience. So I was sort of, had gotten to a place with my music, had found a beautiful niche fan base, and I was being offered these amazing opportunities to travel and play shows and connect with my audience in different parts of the world. And honestly, that's the dream, right? That's I think a lot of us, when we are creating something, to have a moment where you are playing these songs live for people who have perhaps listened to your creations, in perhaps the most intimate spaces in their daily experiences, coming to these events and experiencing these songs with you live for the first time and singing the lyrics back and having that almost that moment of connection, right? Is is perhaps one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced in life. And you know, 2014, however, was this like amazing sort of peak at my career where I got to experience these things. But physically, spiritually, mentally, I was exhausted. I was just, if on the other flip side of the coin, like I was experiencing these highs, just these incredible moments on stage, and you know, having sort of this connection to my audience in a way that I never would with just a recording or a DM or a text message, But on the other side of the coin, I was just so, I feel like unhappy is not the right word. I felt so unfulfilled. And I wasn't sure why I had such almost there were just such polar extreme experiences, And I was trying to reconcile with myself and from a standpoint of, well, if this is my dream, this is what I want to do. This is, this is what every artist wants to experience in some sort of some point in their journey, and I'm getting to experience this. But then, why am I feeling this disconnection? And I was right to feel that, because after that, I felt so disconnected from source for many years. So after that experience, and perhaps maybe I had spent so many years just grinding away at this thing, just hammering away at what I thought I needed to build, that I had sort of lost connection with, what I did when I was a kid, which was just, like I said, play, right? And so it got to a point where I was just physically, mentally, spiritually exhausted. And I said to myself, you know what? I have lost connection to source. I need to find it again, right? So I make this crazy decision, which is I'm just going to take a break, right? So right around 2018, 2020, throughout that duration, I released a body of work which is called Muse, and it's in English, and those were sort of songs that I had sort of crafted from the time frame of 2014 to 2018, but also some of the songs are sort of like sitting in my archives. They're older, and I managed to release that, but it was in my opinion, not exactly coming from a place of play or source, because I feel like, I wouldn't say it was forced, but it was just something that I felt like in my timeline, like I wanted to do, I needed to see through, right? Have an idea, see it through, put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
But after that is, I feel like, where my journey really starts in terms of like reconnecting. So I make a decision. It's closer to 2020. I feel like we're hit with this crazy pandemic, you know, and we're all locked in our homes. My husband and I, we had just purchased our first home, and we were we had decided to move a little bit north of the city, a couple hours north, and that whole time frame, I decide, and it was probably one of the scariest, probably one of the riskiest decision I could take in my career, and I take it, and I just completely go quiet. Right, like I'm not posting. I'm off social media. I am not releasing anything. I'm not posting anything. My grid's offline, and I say to myself, I need to find that again. So, long story short, what I'm trying to say is, in order to, I think, stay continuously connected to source, there's also a huge responsibility for us as creatives to really take care of yourselves physically, to really take care of yourselves mentally, and then, of course, with the combination of the two, the spiritual is a given, right? So the physical and the mental health aspect, and I would say with creatives, it almost starts with mental first, because so much, I think, especially due to the social media age, we have put so much pressure on ourselves in order to create something successful, create something viral, create something that, everyone's gonna love, have millions and millions of followers. Like, we've kind of, like, it's weird, like, it's kind of become, it's kind of transitioned from being like a space of art and creativity to kind of, art and creativity to basically social media stats, or streams, or subscribers and followers, and just this crazy, these success on these crazy tech platforms, and somehow we've kind of transitioned into that. And I think that's probably what's hurting us more than anything, especially creative people, because now we're just trying to tap into that idea and the source that's going to be the most successful idea. But I don't think that's play. Right? I think to get to that successful idea, first you need to play. And there's a series of steps as a creative that you need to constantly prioritize in order to even get to a place where, okay, maybe you're a successful creator. And define success, right? What is success in this day and age? So I think the way to stay connected to source is to preserve play. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which is why I like this me going back in. And it's funny, when we were connecting, I loved your videos so much, because this was right during my social media hiatus. I was just offline, off the grid completely, enjoying my life in this, small town. I'm slowly starting to tap into social media. I'm slowly starting to just take in content. And there's this, like, I feel this huge responsibility. Okay, what kind of content do I want to consume? Like, I've been off of social media for so long. My DMs are full. I'm kind of just, just trying to slowly trickle back into the world, reconnect to the grid. Somehow I come across your page and your content, and so much of those videos really resonated, and so many of those little reels that you post, I think also touch on this idea of source, right? So, and I was just like, wow, like, that's exactly it. Like, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I want to get back to. And ever since then, Nick, like, my journey back into my art form isn't really coming from a place of, hey, I want to be a Grammy-winning, world touring, extremely successful, millions of subscribers artist. My journey back in is just coming from a place of, hey, I just want to get back to that place where I love playing so much, And that joy is what I'm after now. And I am happy to report that I have found it. And I make it a daily practice to be in that space as much as I can, as much as I fight my own inner demons and voices and pressures and pressures of daily life, pressures of adulthood, whatever the case is. But I prioritize creating an environment where I can play.
Yeah, and what I took from that story there, and that was an amazing story, by the way. What I
Thank
took
you.
from that is that it's the whole person that makes music, right? It's not just one part of you that's making music and the rest is separate. So really, you need to develop yourself as an entire person and become a well-rounded person that is, and eliminate the chaos, right, in your head.
It,
And so,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And which is why, like, because you're this person making music or pursuing any art form, really, the physical health aspect also becomes so important because they're all so intertwined. Because, if you're prioritizing nutrition, if you're prioritizing exercise, if you're prioritizing good sleep, if you're prioritizing hydration, all these things are so interconnected to your overall well being. And that overall well being is what then keeps you connected to play, which then keeps you connected to source. And I don't know, hopefully someday you have your $1 million idea. But to get to that, you got to continue just experimenting, right?
like how much of this
So,
is due to, like settling, getting married, settling down, not having to worry about that whole other thing, over there. Like, is
yeah,
that a big part of it too? Like, where you just feel more comfortable in that aspect of your life and it filters through into your music?
yeah, definitely. I feel like that part of me, which is sort of like settling down into my personal life, has actually helped me get to this place here, which is kind of like this safe space that I've created at home, where I feel like no matter what's going on outside, I can come home to the person I love the most, to the person that I'm gonna grow old with, and not have to worry about anything else in the world. Because at the end of the day, like, our daily experiences are our daily experience. That's our real life, right? That is what we're really living. And I don't want to be held back with what's going on in the outside world and not live my life on the daily, which is like kind of in this present moment. And I think that's also been the discipline because it's so hard sometimes to not let the outside come in. So I feel like what my husband and I, we both are extremely almost strict with ourselves to do this. We don't let the outside world come into our bubble. And we've literally just, in some ways, isolated ourselves from the rest of the world. And we create our home environment almost as this temple, this safe space. And I think if we were speaking, 5 or 6 years ago and outside looking in, it would have it's kind of like cause and effect. You would have kind of been like, oh, she's married and she settled down, which is why she's not pursuing music anymore. That's one perspective. But for me, I feel like that whole act of kind of prioritizing that personal life, that space where you can really feel like you're home, is what is now letting me now explore and re-enter in a way where I feel kind of whole. Yeah, I feel like there's really nothing that can get to me now, and I can just create without any pressures
Yeah.
because I've created that safe space.
Unbelievable. I've
Yeah.
noticed that too with me personally. Like since I've been married, you get better work done, right? You're more productive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's incredible. That's just incredible. And so when you're performing and you're up on stage, what is going through your head? Is it just pure expression? I mean, I know you have the technique under wraps. You've been doing it your whole life. What are you thinking about when you're on stage in front of a big audience?
I think the performing arts. So I've had the pleasure of sort of diving into my art form, which is singing, but in sort of multiple layers, right? Like the first one is just, you're expressing through vocals and melody and singing. The second one is through the art of songwriting, which is, I have to really, you know, know my instrument, know my chords, find a way of emoting through harmonies and melodies and making sure a lyric fits that and communicates what it needs to. It's emoting through the art of the song itself. So there's singing, there's the song, and then there's performance, which is a whole different art form, where I feel like I almost have to become this person, this artist that I've created. It's really strange. Like, I feel like this identity is, it's me, but it's also sort of a layer that I've created, which kind of performs, right? Because I think there's like the person, the inner, the person who lives inside of me, which is, this inner child or whatever people call it, the real version of me, which I experience on the daily, especially in this safe space that I call home. But then there's this outer layer version of you that has to go and that has to perform. And there's definitely this outer layer identity. So the first thing I feel like I do, and it's almost kind of like, I almost see her as I want to say kind of like a shield, like a protective armor that I put on before I become her. And that's the first step. I feel like I've kind of disassociated those layers in my brain, and I create this outer layer identity of myself, and I'm like, okay, that's her. She's ready to perform. So the first step I would say is kind of putting that armor on. And once I do that and I become her, and the spotlight comes on, after that, Nick, I don't know how to really describe it. It's taking the song and the singing, but then connecting the two art forms, and really emoting in a live space. And I think that is perhaps the most challenging thing you can do, is being able to emote, which is like your inner person who you have now put a shield around because you've created this outer person, but you need to kind of almost connect those two people as you're performing to a live a live audience, and it depends on the audience, of course. Like, if the audience is familiar with your work, it's easy, right? They know your work, they've heard your songs, they'll sing with you. But if they haven't, if this is the first time they're meeting you, if this is their first impression of you, that's a whole different ballgame. And so you are trying to, in that one moment, almost emote in a way where you are converting this person from a person who's like just sort of just entered your awareness for the first time, and then taking them to kind of just tune into you. So it's a whole different frequency that you're trying to emit. And I enjoy live performing a lot, but I would say this, it requires me a lot of energy to put on that armor. Hopefully by next year I start to take on more live shows. My plan was to start this October, but there's a lot going on politically in Nepal, so I thought it would be easy to just kind of let it breathe till next year. Yeah, I would say there's this whole different personality that comes on, and sometimes it could be just as simple as getting your makeup done, getting your hair done, or sometimes it could be just simple as, that light turning on, or I just really feel that armor come on, and I go. Yeah.
So the trick is taking the emotion from your inner person, getting it through that outer layer, translating it through. So how does one get better at that? Can you practice that? Do you have to practice that, first of all?
You have to practice that. Yes, you just have to keep performing. So for me, and we touched upon this at the beginning of our conversation, I've been performing ever since I was a kid. So I think already there was the sense of like, I'm this little kid and I'm shy and I'm embarrassed. I don't know. I'm in a room full of strangers and adults, and I don't know, I don't know how this is going to be perceived. So I think you learn to do that pretty early on. So there was that for me. But if you're a performer at any stage, I think the most important part, like I said, is to almost, I don't even know how to put it to words. That disassociation that happens between those two layers is almost so important. But the way you can really practice that is just to always be aware. Like you have to almost, it's almost meditative. You're almost bringing it into your awareness. I love this one quote by Maya Angelou where she talks about when you're going on stage, like bring your ancestors with you, you know? So whatever that thing is that makes you feel confident, that makes you feel like you're safe and you're protected, and that makes you feel like you can emote who you really are and who your true self is, and not feel like, oh, someone's looking at me or someone's judging me or something. There's almost this layer of like, it doesn't matter. Like, I am who I am. This is authentically who I am. I'm going to show up whether there's one person in the audience or it's a full stadium. It doesn't matter, right? And for me, those were the reps I got. Like, I played when I was a kid, I sang in front of strangers. When I entered sort of my adolescence and I was in middle school, I sang in front of my school. Once I was in high school, I started to do talent shows. Once I released my first album, I was playing bars and pubs, and Nick, it's like, it's hard because sometimes you play these venues and there's nobody there, right? Like you're staring at like these two awkward faces just, sipping on their drinks, staring at you going, okay, what are you going to play, chick? So I've played gigs like that, and you keep doing that, and it gets to a point where you're like, okay, now I'm playing a stadium or I'm playing this venue and there's thousands of people here. And you know what's crazy? It actually becomes easier once there are more people. Once there are more people, yeah, it's actually extremely hard for me, even to this day. If you were like, hey, Astha, can you sing me a song? I'd be like, if we were in a room together. But hey, you put me in front of 1,000 people, I will rock that. I would be, I would, yeah, I would be like, that's fantastic. Like these, and I think when you get to that place where you have thousands of people buying tickets to attend your shows, you're like, okay, like there's a sense of confidence there because you're like, okay, well, clearly they know my music, they've heard it, they've listened to it, they like what they've heard, and that's why they've showed up, right? But in the early stages of your performing, you're still trying to convert people, you're still trying to be like, hey, listen to my music, I'm good at what I do. And I think that's where it's actually really difficult, and that's where you should start. That's where you get in the reps. Great. And once you start to get comfortable with that, empty venues, people staring, people judging, people talking while you're singing, or eating their food, whatever the case is, you get used to that. You can do anything after that. Yeah.
Amazing.
The bigger stadiums become easier.
So your ideal state is pure expression, but sometimes it's harder to connect the two from your inner being to the outer, getting it out, right? So it just takes reps, right? It just takes practice in all different types of situations to consistently be able to get that out, correct?
Exactly. It's just practice. There's really no other way around it, in my opinion. You have to.
So you can't,
and I think it's...
Yeah, you can't practice at home. You can't practice at home, for example. Like you got to just be in front of an audience. You got to have the people looking at you.
Yeah, no, practicing at home obviously helps. I mean, if you are getting your reps in and you're practicing and you're singing and you're imagining a room and you're talking, you're working on your banter, I think banter is actually so important. Sometimes it's even more important than even the singing. Because singing is like, that's what you naturally do. You can hit those notes. But can you tell a story? Can you leave somebody in to what you're really singing about? Can you take kind of like where we are in our social media age too, like that hook is so important, and you post a lot of content and I'm sure you've been experimenting.
Yeah.
But that initial hook to get somebody in to your, somebody even listening to your song, so the banter is really important. I practice actually more sometimes like the framework of the banter from song to song, sometimes even more than actually singing. Because singing I feel very confident in. Yeah. I feel like I can sing, yeah. Yeah.
That's very evident. So, well, Astha, I'll let you go. I really appreciate your time. And go get Astha's album released last year, correct? Sare Ga Ma Pa.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
But it's
thank
honestly,
you, Nick.
your voice is just so beautiful. You're so expressive when you sing. So I promise you, if you go out there and get that album, you'll really, really enjoy it. So go listen to her play and listen to the short series on YouTube. Beautifully shot, beautifully performed. So Thanks so much for your time. This is so enlightening, so informative. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. And as I work on more bodies of work, hopefully I can send them your way, and would love to get your thoughts and feedback. And yeah, I hope you also get to that place of continuously enjoying play. That's what I would wish for every artist. Play.
That's the ultimate state.
That's the
Yeah.
ultimate state.
Yeah. And that's what fuels you. And you're there now.
I'm
You're
there
there now.
now.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks so much.